Somewhere this year, you silenced a part of yourself, and you know exactly which part it was. But here's the truth we rarely talk about. Silence is not always self-betrayal. Sometimes silencing is wisdom. Sometimes it's restraint. Sometimes it's how we make peace with the moments where we were the ones who got it wrong. Silencing can be a wound, and silencing can be a repair. So mid-year is the moment to sort out which is which. There's a kind of silencing that comes from fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rupture, fear of being misunderstood. But there's another kind of silencing that comes from growth. The kind where you realize, oh, I don't need to win this. I don't need the last word. I don't need to defend myself here. I was wrong. And I need a minute to metabolize that. This kind of silencing isn't collapse, it's maturity. It's the moment you let your nervous system say, hey, let me settle before I speak. That's not avoidance. That is regulation. Sometimes we silence ourselves because we're trying to preserve a connection. Not in a self-erasing way, but in a relationally intelligent way. You might silence yourself because you realized you misread the moment. You recognized your tone wasn't aligned with your intention. You needed to step back to see the other person more clearly. You chose repair over being right. You needed to soften before you spoke again. This is the kind of silencing that builds trust. It's the kind that says, I'm choosing the relationship over the impulse. That's not weakness. That's leadership. But there's another kind of silencing. And that one does cost you. It's the silencing that comes from swallowing your needs, minimizing your boundaries, shrinking your voice to keep the peace, performing fine when you're really not, carrying the emotional labor of everyone else. This kind of silencing creates an internal rupture, and it disconnects you from your own reality. And by mid-year, you can feel the weight of it. And it's not because you're dramatic, but because your system is really tired of holding what you haven't said. Silencing is a strategy. It is one that our nervous systems learned early on. We silence ourselves to avoid shame, to avoid disappointing others, to avoid being seen too clearly, to avoid the grief of admitting we were wrong, to avoid the vulnerability of asking for what we need. Silencing is often an attempt to stay safe. But safety and silence are not the same thing. Mid-year isn't asking you to speak your truth loudly. It's asking you to discern which silences were wise and which silences cost you. Which silences help you repair and which silences fractured you. Which silences were grounded and which silences were fear. This is the reset. Not breaking the silence, but understanding it. Reclaiming, it doesn't mean undoing the silences that were wise. It means returning to the parts of you that got muted unintentionally. The part that had a need, the part that had a boundary, the part that had a truth, the part that had a longing, the part that had a perspective worth sharing. Reclaiming is not rebellion. It's integration. It's saying, I can be someone who chooses silence and someone who speaks from truth. Both can coexist. Both are part of a mature voice. If you recognized a part of yourself that you've muted, give that part a voice today, even privately. Let it say one thing that it's been holding, because reclamation starts quietly. I hope this was helpful.